What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the return of Cold Takes from the Land.
Cold Takes from the Land, where you get the coldest takes from the hottest Cleveland sports fans.
It's been a while, buddy.
Been a long time, everybody.
It's been a
We kind
while.
of,
Yeah, it's been a
what,
time.
since week like 6 or 7 of the Browns season, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, for you lovely people that still think about our existence, me and old Austin over here got jobs that worked polar opposite schedule. So I'm getting up at the crack ass of dawn, and by the time I'm getting home, buddy boy over here is getting ready to go to work. So,
Yep, pretty much. So it just did not line up with our schedules, unfortunately. But recently I got a new job, so we are back on somewhat of the same schedule. So we're going to try to get out regular programming for you guys.
regular motherfucking programming. That's what we like to hear over
Yep.
here. And with that, we thought we would just do a big old update on how we're feeling about our main three Cleveland sports teams. And let's start that with probably the most positive in terms of performance, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are ballin' and are the top seed in the Eastern Conference as we rear into the last bit of the regular season and head into playoff basketball. They're pretty damn good, buddy.
Yeah, they're pretty dang good, man. Granted, I don't think either one of us have watched a ton of basketball this year, but we're going to try to obviously get back into it before the playoffs rev up here in the next couple weeks, and we'll have predictions out for you guys. But incredible season. I mean, I was watching a little bit of the game last night. I know Donovan Mitchell was out again, so Evan Mobley and Garland and Ty Jerome really had to step up. But it was a good game. I think we're still sitting at 14 losses, I think, on the season,
Yeah,
which is
58 and
insane.
14. Yeah.
Yeah, 58 and 14. So, I mean, it's pretty much given that we're going to win the one seed at this point. I mean,
Right.
even if we lose out, I think the Celtics would have to win out to catch us. So,
It's
a
something
hell of
close
a
to
year.
that.
Yeah, you can't really talk enough about just the difference the coaching has made with Kenny Atkinson, because we were all, I think, in the same boat of you have to trade one of the two, whether it's Garland or Allen at the end of last year, because it didn't seem to be meshing. And then, man, getting a new voice in there and just an offensive coach, it really has made all the difference for them.
Yeah. Kenny Atkinson has been an excellent coach, and I think I hope he wins Coach of the Year, even though there's a few different candidates in the running for that. But he's made a huge difference, as well as I think Evan Mobley made the jump that we were waiting on for him to make this year, and I think we saw shades of that in the previous season's playoffs when he played really well against the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year he's really taken it over. I personally think he's truly our second best player on the team, and I think there's games where he's the best player on the floor. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year now that Wemby's out for the year, for sure. But yeah, his defensive presence is ridiculous. His offensive game is coming along really, really nicely. He's real close to 20 points a game. He's averaging 18.6, playing 30 minutes a game. So yeah, he's averaging 18-9 with 3 assists and a block and a half a game. And then, of course, as we know, Donovan Mitchell leading the squad. Having a bit of a down scoring year when you look at the numbers, but I think that just speaks more to the improvement of the guys around him. He's doing his
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, him and Garland are finally like really working really well, and that was something that we were kind of worried about last season. It seemed like there were a lot of moments where they weren't fitting the best, and maybe it's still not a perfect fit, but I think they're playing as well together as you could have asked for, and I'm really looking forward to playoff time.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm looking forward to trying to get back into it. As I've said on the past here, basketball used to be my favorite sport, NBA basketball I'm talking about, obviously. But over the years, especially since Steph Curry and Klay Thompson kind of like made it to prominence with three-point shots and everything, like I've really taken a disinterest in basketball. I still love playoff basketball, but regular season basketball to me has become such a slog to get through. I mean, I'd very much rather sit through 162 baseball games and watch those than 82 games of NBA basketball in 2025. But we have an exciting team, so I'm going to try my hardest to get back into it and really like dive into it for you guys here with Draven. But one thing I did want to talk about that you kind of talked about with Evan Mobley a bit, that was the number one thing when I was watching last night. I only watched the first half because it was a West Coast game, so we didn't start till like fucking 10 p.m. But
Right.
yeah, just watching him, dude, like I was like, holy, like this looks like a different fucking player. Like there was a sequence where he blocked a shot and Bill Russell style fucking took the ball, fucking ran up, hauled up court by himself, dribbling it, spun on a dude and threw it up for a layup. And I'm like, Evan Mobley was not doing this when I was watching him last. So the fact that he finally took that step, like we said he needed to, I mean, he really is the second best player on the team. I think there's a good shot within a year and a half, he might be the best player on the team just because his defense is so much better than Donovan Mitchell's. Donovan's a great scorer, but Evan Mobley should be able to take that step to, and if he does, if he keeps going on this path, I think we have a real chance to win. And with Ty Jerome now too, like I think we have a shot this year. I think you got to go balls to the wall and try to win it this year because Ty Jerome is going to be a hot commodity. And somebody's going to pay him a lot of money because he's shooting the freaking lights out of the ball right now.
Yeah,
so,
he could win Sixth Man of the Year
for the next couple weeks. Yeah, for the next couple weeks while you have him, you gotta try to win this thing or at least make a very deep playoff run because likelihood is he's not going to be here next year.
Yeah, he's been really important to the bench, as well as I was going to get into, a midseason trade that was made, bringing in DeAndre Hunter. And sending out Georges Niang and Karis LeVert, who are two guys that obviously I liked to an extent and contributed, but DeAndre Hunter was like the perfect acquisition to come off the bench for this team because obviously his defensive ability is insane. He's immediately the best perimeter defender on the team. He's a lights-out three-point shooter, and he just you can have him on the floor and play a similar role that like Okoro was playing last year, but Okoro's shooting is so up and down, whereas Hunter, I mean, he'll kill you from three if you let him. I mean, he's shooting 47% from three since coming to Cleveland, which is ridiculous. That leads the team, and it's not really close. Yeah. So he's been really good, and because of that creates smaller roles for a guy like an Isaac Okoro, and I think he's still even been playing well. And then, of course, you have Max Strus, Okoro, as I said, and Ty Jerome, and all those other role players that are playing really well. We're shooting the ball really well, and I'm really excited for the playoffs. I think it comes down to us or Boston to come out of the East. I don't see any other team really being a threat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. I think if you don't at least make it and have a good run in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think it's a failure of a year just because the West still, I think, is way deeper than the East. And like you said, I don't think Boston, obviously defending champs, so you got to get through them. But outside of Boston, the Sixers fell off and Joel Embiid's out.
He might never play again.
Teams. I mean, yeah, I know the Magic kind of took a big step back this year. There's not really anybody I mean, Milwaukee's fine, but they're super old. They have their top three best players are all above the age of 30. So, I mean, it should be an easy road, and that's what kind of scares me because we are still a younger team. Granted, Donovan Mitchell and some of these guys have experience now, but we should be able to easily make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then hopefully put up a good battle against the Celtics.
Yeah, we got it. We have to keep our foot on the gas pedal when we get into the playoffs. We can't go to 7 again with Orlando like we did last year. We can't.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a big thing coming into playoff basketball is we can't get pushed around. We have to hold up physically, and we need like the Mobleys and the Garlands and the bench to really step up and maintain that level of play in the playoffs, as well as Jared Allen, of course. Because I trust Mitchell to do his thing, but the other guys, you still have some question marks because of the inexperience and this big of basketball. But yeah, I'm really excited for a potential Eastern Conference Finals between Boston and Cleveland. And you know what? If everyone's healthy, we might just beat them. We might just make it to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, we have a real shot, man. I mean, out of all of our teams, and we'll talk about Guardians here next, I think just with the amount of talent the Cavs have and their coach, I think they have the best chance of making a deep run. Especially, like you said, with the midseason acquisition of DeAndre Hunter, who's been awesome. He's shooting 50% from the field, 48, I think, 47, you said, from three. And just watching him last night, he was making his own shot. Like, he was creating shots that we haven't had a wing player do for us since LeBron James. And just his athleticism and length, like you said, on the perimeter makes all the difference for us. So if Donovan can hopefully get healthy and get 100% right before the playoffs start, I think we can win it all. I really do.
I think we can. It could definitely happen. I'm really excited to talk about playoff basketball here soon.
Yeah,
obviously, we'll have in-depth thoughts and predictions here soon. But with that, why don't we move into a team
Guardians.
it's getting ready to start their regular season here very, very soon, and that is the Cleveland Guardians. I've been waiting to hear your thoughts on this team because obviously you're a much bigger baseball guy than I am. You're a lot more reliable for stuff like that. And, from what I've seen and, what I know, it's been, for the most part, up until it seemed like towards the very end of it, it seemed like a really quiet offseason until like right at the end.
Yeah, so like you said, with our ownership being super cheap and frugal, we didn't really do a whole lot in the offseason. We traded away two of our bigger pieces in Josh Naylor and Jimenez and got two pitchers back from the Pirates and the Diamondbacks.
Mm-hmm.
One of them has kind of sucked ass, the Arizona pitcher. He's not even going to make the starting rotation. I don't know if he's going to be in the bullpen or not, but we'll see how that shakes out. The other guy we got for Jimenez is the guy to keep an eye on, Luis Ortiz. He's going to be the number 3 in the rotation, right behind Bybee and Gavin Williams to start the year. He'll probably get bumped to 4, depending on whenever Bieber comes back. But outside of that, we really didn't do much up until this past week when we traded Tyler Freeman for Nolan Jones, who used to be in the Guardians organization 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm super excited about because last year he was injured, but in 2023 when he played, he hit 20 home runs and had like 70 RBIs. So he has some power. He's a good outfielder. And I think between him and John Kenzie Noel, who hit over 300 on the spring this year, obviously has that crazy good power that he can just hit to all sides of the ballpark. I think between the two of those, that really hopefully solidifies that last outfield spot with Quan and Thomas going forward into this year.
Yeah, for sure. I know you were really, really excited about that move when it happened. I remember you were texting me saying, "We did it! He's back!"
Yep. Yeah, he's super young, too. He's only 26 still, so.
Right. My question is, I got two things I want to hear your opinion on in terms of the pitching. In terms of the starting rotation, obviously we have our 5 guys, and at least anticipated the 5 guys we have now. But once Bieber's back, who do you think's the odd man out? Logan Allen?
Yeah, probably Allen, just based on what he did last year. And even though he had a winning record somehow, like if you remember last year, he would give up like what felt like 8 runs a game, but we would average 9 whenever he pitched.
Right.
So he had a winning record, but his ERA was absolutely atrocious. But this spring he's been decent. He's been a lot better than he has looked, and it is looking way better than Tristan McKenzie is looking, who they pushed to the bullpen. So
yeah, it makes sense.
I think McKenzie just, I don't know what happened with him, man. He just got pushed off track with that injury, and he never recovered. So we'll see how he does out of the bullpen, but I really think his starting days are over, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he seemed like a kid that had a lot of potential early on, but just could never find his groove.
He's still so young.
Hurt.
I mean, he could find it again, but it's going to be difficult just because there's better competition in that starting lineup now. With Bybee taking a step forward, and Gavin, I think, who really looked good this spring. Gavin Williams might be a stud for us. So
yeah, that would be great.
We'll
we need more of that in the starting rotation at least.
Yeah, our pitching was what killed us starting pitching, I should say. Our bullpen's still miraculous, but our starting pitching is what killed us last year. So if we can get some consistency there, hopefully with adding these couple pitchers, maybe Logan Allen can hold it together until Bieber gets back. But it'll be interesting because David Fry's out, as you know, as well, and for a couple months. So, and then when he comes back, I think he's going to have to DH for the whole year. He's not going to be able to play catcher or anything. So, but it will be nice just to get his bat back in the lineup. Yeah, it'll be nice to get the bat back in the lineup. My only concern is really Carlos Santana, and if he can do what he did last year. I mean, he's 39, I think, this year, so I don't know how well he's going to be able to hit, but if the combination of him and Manzardo, who I think will have a breakout year this year, can at least match close to what Naylor did, I think you're okay, because you're going to get a full season of Lane Thomas now rather than just a half the year when we made the trade for him last year.
Right.
Hopefully Quan can stay healthy, and then having Nolan Jones and John Kenzie Noel under this new hitting coach, I think hopefully we can see Noel average a better batting average and continue to have that power. So it should be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask you about that, about your thoughts on the Santana acquisition. Fun fact: when I was a little kid, he was my favorite player. I don't know why, but he's the one I picked.
Yeah, he's a good player, man. I mean, he's a switch hitter too, so it just adds. You have 3 now with Jose and Rocchio that play regularly, so it's nice to have guys that can hit from both sides of the plate.
Yeah, one thing I hope to see a big improvement of, at least in terms of hitting at the plate, is I'd like to see a step up from Bo Naylor. because obviously
Yeah.
last year was a scary year for him for most of it. Obviously, we know how talented of a catcher he is, but I hope he could have a little bit of a step up. I'm curious to see. Excuse me. I'm curious to see now that what am I trying to say? That what's his face? Jimenez is gone. Good Lord, I don't know why I couldn't say his name. I was going to ask you about that too, about the getting rid of Jimenez and Naylor. Obviously, Naylor we understood because of Manzardo, and then obviously we brought in Santana. But obviously Jimenez was like a ridiculous guy to have out there, at least defensively. So I'm kind of curious to see how that holds up, because it's going to be Arias playing now there.
Yeah, so Arias is going to start at second, and this is kind of his last hurrah because he's out of major league options. So if it doesn't work, he's just going to get DFA'd, unfortunately, and we will probably see Juan Brito come up from Columbus because he has, I think next year is his last option year, so you can still send him up and down as many times as you want this year.
What are the chances you think we see good old Bonanza man?
I don't know, man. I don't think we do, just knowing like our organization. I mean, you might see him come playoff time because they have the expanded roster to where they can call up a couple guys. But I think our season would have to either be like the White Sox last year, where we're just horrendous, and you're like, fuck it, let's see what he can do against some major league hitting. I think that's a scenario where you see him. Or if second base is just, I mean, absolutely atrocious. Like if Arias is as bad as he was last year, and if Juan Brito or one of these other guys like a Schneemann or somebody doesn't pan out helping out there, I think you could see him that way. But Jimenez, like you were touching on, it sucks because he was one of my favorite players along with Quan and Jose. But just being in the spot we are with a mid-market team, we were paying him $15.5 million a year, I think, and for what he was doing offensively, we just couldn't continue to do that, you know?
Right. No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, with him and Naylor too, like those two guys in particular, I think they really looked at the guys that were, I mean, a lot of times in big moments in the playoffs, you would see Naylor who would struggle, and same with Jimenez. Like he would get a curve ball down by his fucking cleat laces and he would swing at it out of his shoes. And I'm like, man, this is some of the worst pitches you've ever seen he would swing at. And I really think Carlos Santana's always been known to be a guy that draws a lot of walks. He has a good eye at the plate. And I think Manzardo's OPS and his eye at the plate are a lot better too. So I think you're going to see the first base position getting on base a lot more, whether it's walks or just hits and batting average in general. And second base, that's the big question mark. What can we do? Arias had a decent spring and he showed some pop, but you never know with him. I mean, this is his last hurrah, so maybe we see him finally stick and take that position over, but that is the one spot that I'm still not sure on. I'd like to see Juan Brito, because I think that's going to be the option whenever Arias inevitably probably doesn't pan out, that you'll see him.
Right.
But it should be interesting, man. I think our offense should be better if Rocchio can kind of continue to do what he did in the playoffs. Like, I think that'll be a huge boost to that 7 through 9 because, and like you said, if Bo can take that next step, 7 through 9, you need one or two of those three guys to start hitting. And if Rocchio can maintain what he's been doing this spring and in the last playoffs to end the year, the last like 10th of the season, and if we get a little bit more from Bo, if he hits 230, 240 even, with some power rather than 200 like he did last year, I think we can go a long way with this new pitching staff.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. That's kind of, what I was thinking. It's still such a young team outside of like the select top guys that have been here a while, but with improved starting pitching, and of course really excited to see what Bieber looks like when he gets back, because obviously before he had surgery last year, his 2 or 3 games he played, he was lights out. So hopefully you can get
so good.
I think we're hoping to get like 85% of that, and if you do, then you're really happy. And if the bullpen can play as well as it did the previous year, then I'm excited to see how this goes with an improved offense. I was going to ask you before we move on, who is your sleeper player, in your opinion, that you think a lot of fans aren't paying as much attention to, that you think can make an impact?
Oh, man. For the Guardians, that's a good question. I don't know if there's necessarily like a big sleeper pick, just because a lot of guys are going to get shots, but I really think either John Kenzie Noel or Nolan Jones. I think the combination of those two guys, I think Nolan will get used a lot against the right-handed pitching, which is most of the starters, but John Kenzie's a right-handed hitter, so I think you can use him a lot too. And I think between those two guys, I think you're going to see a big upgrade. You might see a combined 25, 30 home runs from the right field position this year, which I would love to see.
That would be nice. That would be nice. And
Yeah.
oh yeah, we brought back your favorite player, buddy. Austin Hedges is back once again for another year.
Yep, yes, she is, and I don't mind it. I mean, the more and more the years and months go on, like I only hear positive things about him. I'm like, even the guys on MLB Network were like, listen, he can't hit fucking anything, but the guy's defense and what he brings to the team just. It seems like whenever he's on the team, for whatever reason, we win. I.e., he's our James Jones or some shit.
He's the ultimate
But
glue guy.
whenever we're here, we seem to win and the morale's up. And whenever we have a bad game, he's the guy that seems to be like, okay, guys, let's turn it around. We can do this. Like, because he relates to everybody. Jose's from the Dominican Republic, or like a lot of these guys don't speak great English. So it's like having a guy like Hedges there that can communicate with both sides and get the team turned around from a mental standpoint. I think he's a big asset to Stephen Vogt. So I'm fine with him as long as he doesn't take a ton of at-bats.
Right. No, yeah, he's like the ultimate glue guy, like I was saying. I was more so poking a little fun at you because I know you've had your history of, why is this guy out here?
2 home runs back-to-back, buddy. He had home runs back-to-back last week in back-to-back games. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, Lord.
So, yeah, I'm excited. What do you think? We'll go predictions, too. What do you think the Guardians' record will be, and where do you think they will finish in the division this year?
I'm going to say we win the division yet again. And I feel like we're going to be a team that comes on later in the year. And I'm going to say we win 94 games.
Okay, you're close to what I'm at. So I was going to say we also win the division. I think we win, what did we have, 92 wins last year? I think we'll go 93 and 69. So I think we'll have one more win than last year. And I'm really banking on the pitching being better and that right field position taking a big step up. And like you said, hopefully Bo Naylor, and I think Manzardo. I think this is his year, man. I think he's going to be a beast. He's got like 5 home runs in the spring already, really good batting average. He's getting on base a lot. So I think those will be big upgrades. And getting Bieber back, I think he will be fine because he's not like a guy like Clase where he's going to blow you away with the speed anyway. Like he's never throwing high 90s. He's averaging around like 90, 92 on his fastballs. So the fact that he relies on the off-speed stuff, granted he did have Tommy John, but I think he'll bounce back from that better than a lot of pitchers will.
Let's
and
hope.
Getting Fry back, that'll be interesting where you play him at, because you might see Santana, depending on how he does, kind of kicked out of the lineup once Fry comes back because he can't play any position. So he's going to have to DH, and you're not going to leave Kyle Manzardo out of the lineup. So, I mean, you might see him fill a Hedges role where he plays first base every like 4th or 5th day kind of thing.
Right.
But to give Manzardo a break, but I really think Fry is going to have to come on, and he's clutch as hell as he showed last year. He had the big home run against the Yankees in the ALCS to win the one game we won against them, and then he had when the series was on the fucking ropes in Detroit, when it was looking like we were going to go down and lose the series, he had that big home run on the road. So guy's clutch as hell, and if we can get him back with our ace and Shane Bieber, and hopefully Gavin Williams takes that step to become our 2nd or 3rd best pitcher, I think we can be solid.
I just want us to beat the damn Yankees.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I think we can this year. Juan Soto's a stud, dude, and he's, as you saw, clutch as hell. I mean, we threw frickin' Gaddis out there, who's one of our best pitchers, and he fucking just toyed with him and blasted one that ended the series in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's gone, they got some good players, but a lot of these guys are older now. Bellinger's had injuries. Paul Goldsmith's a good player, but he's old as hell. He's even older than him. I think he's like mid-30s now. So I'm like, they brought in some guys, but I'm like, I really don't think they're going to be as much of a threat to us. Although, granted, it seems like even when we have great teams, they always put up good series against us. So the good thing is we're in the American League, and the American League is kind of like the Eastern Conference, where it is definitely weaker. Like the Phillies, the Dodgers, obviously the Padres, and the Braves are going to be insane because they're getting Ronald Acuna, and they have a stacked lineup. So like those 4 are really like probably the 4 best teams outside of us and New York in baseball. So thank gosh we're not in the National League because it is loaded over there.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting season. I'm excited to see. You know, it's funny we talk about how the Eastern Conference is a little bit weaker and the AL's a little weaker. I wish we could say the same thing about the AFC and the NFL.
Oh, yeah, our division. I mean, granted, baseball, our division was really tough last year because 3 teams made the playoffs, so
Right.
the Twins weren't out of it until like the last 2 weeks of the season. But our division is brutal, man, especially it's with the fucking quarterbacks. The Steelers, thankfully, don't have anybody yet, although they might get Aaron Rodgers, but being in the same division with Lamar and fucking Burrow, man, it just does a number on you.
Well, with that, let's chug through the depressing part of this video. The
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, buddy.
This has been an interesting offseason.
Yeah, we didn't even get to give our thoughts really, because we haven't talked about the Browns since like when we were fucking 1-4, I think, is when we stopped recording.
Yeah, God. I mean, I guess we can try to quickly recap the season. Obviously, it was an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah. Offense was dog shit. Defense took a step back, but we're still serviceable. But man, the offense was it was like watching a 2.5-hour, 3-hour train wreck every Sunday, buddy.
Yeah, it was bad. Dorian Thompson-Robinson might take the title for worst Browns quarterback I've ever seen since '99. I think
he cannot throw it, man. He's a good kid, but he cannot throw the fucking ball.
Yeah, we gave him the shot, gave him a couple years to develop, see if he could be a decent backup. He's not. We traded him we traded him and gave up a 5th rounder for Kenny Pickett, if that tells you anything. So
yeah, and Kenny Pickett ain't good either, but he's definitely a little bit better than DTR was.
Yeah, so fired Ken Dorsey, which was the right move because he was only here for Deshaun, clearly.
Yeah.
And
made a big trade, got rid of a fan favorite in Amari Cooper, sent him to the Bills, where
he was
weirdly
on the team
enough he didn't do much. Yeah, I think he caught 1 touchdown with the Bills, and then kind of really didn't do anything in the playoffs. So
yeah, so it looks like that was
being a pretty good deal. Yeah, but I think really one of the only few positives outside of in what little time we did see him, I think Mike Hall is going to be a beast. But
yeah,
outside of that, Jerry Jeudy, man, that freaking contract. We talked about it. I know you were a little like when we signed him, you were a little bit like, oh man, like this could turn out real good, or this could be an overpay depending on if he keeps playing like he did in Denver. But he balled the hell out this year.
Yeah, he was great, especially once Deshaun got out of the lineup. He had a ridiculous end to the year. He was like towards the top of the league in receiving yards, made the Pro Bowl. He was really good to have, and so far he looks like a really damn solid pickup for this team. And I'm really excited about that. Even Cedric Tillman was playing pretty well before he got hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot.
Outside of that, though, mostly bad, huh, buddy?
Yeah, pretty bad. It was pretty bad. The offensive line was really, really bad.
Yep. Chubb broke his foot.
Yeah, Chubb came back, didn't look great, and then broke his ankle. So he never really got to get going. And then, yeah, like you said, the offensive line was bad.
Our best player wanted traded. We had to go through all that this offseason.
Oh, yeah, man, the Myles Garrett thing. We never even talked about that. Well, I'm glad it went the way it did.
Yeah, God, me too.
Because
it was looking rough for a minute there, because he was like doing this whole freaking world tour talking about how he wanted out and all that stuff. I'm still waiting because there has to be something we do at quarterback. I have a hard time believing he would just re-up for all that money without having a plan at quarterback. So, but we'll talk about that a little bit later here in this video.
Yeah, so basically, big win of the offseason was retaining Myles Garrett, re-signing him. In terms of releases, we released Juan Thornhill, Dalvin Tomlinson. Those were our 2 post-June 1st cuts to relieve some space. A little disappointed to lose Dalvin just because he was a good run defender. He wasn't ever as good as he was in Minnesota here, but he was still solid enough. He just wasn't great rushing the passer. Juan Thornhill sucked here, so whatever.
Yeah, he was horrible.
I mean, he was a decent run defender, but was atrocious in coverage. Was always seemed to be the guy out of position. And it kind of seemed like he didn't really want to be here anymore based on his actions on social media after getting released. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, his Pittsburgh stuff, yeah.
And he also got into it with one of our one of the guys who's on like the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Adam the Bull. He compared him to like a hippopotamus on like Twitter or something.
Oh, Jesus, what the heck?
Yeah,
he was a bum the whole time. I think he was a guy that really took criticism to heart, where it's like, dude, like the fact that he was on one winning team in the he won. Did he win 1 or 2 Super Bowls?
I think 2.
2. Either way, he wasn't. He's one of these guys that was on the team, and he acts like he was the Chris Jones of the defense, so to speak. Like this guy, granted, he was much better with the Chiefs than he was with us. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But this guy was never like, he hypes himself up like he was the one that won them damn championships. Like they didn't have Patrick Mahomes or fucking Travis Kelce, 2 Hall of Famers, you know. So
right.
I don't want to bash the guy too much, but he was just horrendous. Like you said, he was always out of freaking. I couldn't tell you how many times we were watching games and I would text you. I'm like, this fucking guy. He's always out of place. He was giving up touchdowns over the top constantly. And I know not everything was his fault, but man, every time you looked up, it would seem like he wasn't giving his maximum effort on plays. It seemed like he was getting burnt. He looked slow as hell out there. Like, he just was not a good fit. I mean, we talked about it after a few games. We're like, man, let's see these rookies or these freaking, like a Ronnie Hickman, a guy that's a second-year player last year. Like, we want to see more of them and less Juan Thornhill. So I think addition by subtraction there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't expect a big Juan Thornhill rant there. That was funny. But
Oh, that guy sucks. And I hate when people bash on our teams and shit too. It's like, brother, you did get paid. Like, I get you didn't get along with the fans, and like Cleveland's very blunt. We're obviously an AFC North team. It's like just like the Steelers or the Ravens. If you suck, fans are gonna call you out for it. So it just is what it is, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not too hurt by that loss. Ronnie Hickman was clearly the better player.
Oh yeah.
So those two guys were cut. In terms of free agents, the only two that have been brought back were Tony Brown, just a special teams guy who plays corner, and then Devin Bush. I was happy to bring him back because he played pretty well last year. But outside of that, there's quite a few notable guys who are still out there. Jedrick Wills, obviously, he's not coming back. Jameis Winston signed with New York, was probably for the best. I like Jameis, but
James Hudson signed with New York as well, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, Hudson also went to the Giants. Yeah, good guy.
Nah.
Jeez. But the big one, the big fish, Nick Chubb.
Yeah, we need to re-sign Chubb, man. We need to, just for morale purposes, and like we were talking about earlier today off the air, with a guy coming back from a major injury like that, he obviously did the first handful of games. He never got his feet under him. When he did come back, he was only averaging I think 2 yards a carry or something like that. So it was very bad. But if I'm going to put money on anybody bouncing back when they have hopefully a full season and they have a little bit of time to get their wits about them, it would be Nick Chubb. And he's not as old as Derrick Henry or anything. Granted, he's going to be, I think, 29 coming into the season. But I'd still give him a shot, man. Sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal. It's not going to take a lot to bring him back because, one, he wants to be here, and two, he played so bad last year in the only, 9 or 10 games that he played. But still, I think you can bring him back, and he has to bounce back. If he can be 80 to 85% of what Nick Chubb is, I think that's great. But you still got to bring in a guy in the draft as insurance and a younger back to kind of, hopefully Nick Chubb can kind of pass along some of his knowledge to him. But I think losing him would be more of a hit to just the overall locker room morale and everything more than anything. And with Myles Garrett going about his business the way that he did, he kind of made it pretty clear that he wants Nick Chubb back. So we'll see what happens. I know the Raiders have expressed interest in him, and I think one other team, but I have a hard time believing go to Las Vegas or any of these other places. So we'll see.
Yeah,
he will, obviously. I mean, if we don't offer him any money, if we completely lowball him, he will, I think. But I think we can get a deal done there.
I do think it's important to bring him back. Like you said, even if he can't remain what he used to be, he's just such a locker room guy and a glue guy for this team. He is a Cleveland Brown. He should retire here. I think you bring him back. In my opinion, I would draft 2 running backs in this class just because of how good the class is. Give him as much support in that room as you can, just in case he can't hang anymore like he used to. But yeah, of all our listed free agents, I mean, if you could get Elijah Moore back on something super cheap, I'd be cool with that too. But yeah, Nick Chubb is the big guy you have to bring back, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's one of your core 3. I mean, you could say core 4 if you include Denzel Ward in there. But I think Myles Garrett, Bitonio, Nick Chubb, and Denzel are the guys that if any of them left, barring retirement, obviously Bitonio is going to retire sometime here soon. But if they left in free agency or something, I think it would be a big blow to the team.
Right, for sure. And with that, I'll talk about a couple of the guys we signed. Obviously, we already briefly touched on that. We brought in Kenny Pickett. I just hope that he's just a backup, and if he's just a backup, whatever. He's better than DTR. Fuck him.
Yeah, that worries me because we've seen a lot of dominoes fall in the last few weeks, and with the news the other day of Russ going to the Giants now, from what I was reading, it's still likely that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with the Steelers, so I don't think he was ever really serious about coming to Cleveland anyway, so he's kind of off the board. Kirk Cousins, obviously, they didn't cut him before the date that they had to cut him. So, but it's still possible we could get him, barring some kind of trade or something like that.
Yeah, like a trade where they pay some of his salary, or they just end up cutting him anyway, which I don't know if that'll happen. But So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's not many options for us, buddy. But I mean, unless we take, just the way everything's going out, I have a feeling we're going to take Shador or whoever, unless the Titans trade back and the Giants take Shador number one, or if whoever takes Cam Ward, if he goes number one, like I think you take the other quarterback probably.
It might end up being that way, which we'll get in here quickly on how I feel
If we
about
lost
the draft,
Miles,
but-
I think that makes number two easy because then you would have to take Abdul Carter if you lost Miles. But thankfully we kept him.
Right. Before we get into draft talk, I'll briefly touch on the 5 guys that we did sign, the 5 notable guys. Firstly, so DeAndre Carter from the Bears. He's a receiver, special teams guy, decent returner. A little bit of an odd signing because he's like 30 or 31.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you want someone younger doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But could be an interesting guy. Cornelius Lucas, a tackle who was originally in Washington. He's been in the league, I think, like a decade, who's just been a damn solid swing tackle. He's good enough to start if he has to, but it seems to me like he'll be best as like the veteran swing tackle, can play both sides, can kind of be like what James Hudson was supposed to be, but much better. So
Yeah, that guy, wasn't he like a bona fide starter? Like he's supposed to be pretty good, isn't he?
yeah, I think you're thinking of the guard we brought in, which I'll
Oh, the
get to.
guard. Yeah, the guard from the Bears, yeah.
But I'll get into him. He's the last guy I want to talk about. So yeah, Lucas, nice swing tackle. Hopefully you don't have to start him, but he can get the job done if you have to. We brought in an edge rusher, Joe Tryon, who was in Tampa Bay last year. He was a first-round pick who just never really lived up to being a first-round pick, has struggled to get to the quarterback at times, but it looks like I have a feeling Obo is going to get traded or cut because it seems like he's going to kind of play that role, him and like Isaiah McGuire, depending on what we do in the draft. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I think the 2 best signings were Malik Collins is the Dalvin replacement out of San Fran. He's basically, I think he's on like the same level as Dalvin, but with their roles kind of flipped. Like Malik isn't as good of a run stopper, not quite as big, but I think he's a little more athletic and he's a decently better pass rusher. So it looks like we're kind of prioritizing getting to the quarterback with these defensive tackles, with these interior guys. So him and Mike Hall could be an interesting pairing. I would still like to draft an interior guy later in the draft, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, me too. That was a good signing. Like you said, Dalvin had a really good year when we busted out and Flacco carried us to the playoffs. I think he played pretty well, but he fell off pretty quickly last year. So it's nice to see us bring in somebody that kind of does some different things, but pairing him with Mike Hall, I think could be interesting, as you said. So,
right. But yeah, I like him. But the big one, which was interesting, we brought in Tevin Jenkins, who was in Chicago previously. This guy, his main thing has been health. He came into the league as a tackle, as a left tackle, was just, from what I know, he was just okay as a tackle, but then they kicked him into guard, and he's played both left and right guard, and was, when he's on the field, was a pretty solid right guard. I think he graded out like top 15 in the league this past season. His main problem is he's missed like 3 or 4 games like every year. So his main issue is injury concern. But when he's on the field, he's been really good. To me, this screams one of 2 things. Either one, they view him as our left tackle of the future because he's only 27. So I think, so in my opinion,
and you don't want to have to keep playing Batonio there either.
Yeah, so to me this screams he's our left tackle, or that he is our right guard for the future and Teller is on his way out, which to me would honestly be the better of the 2 options, just because Tevin has been a really good guard in the league and Wyatt Teller has been on a huge downswing ever since like 2022. He's just kind of slowly gotten worse every year, and last year he flat out was just painfully like not a great pass protector, was still an okay enough run blocker, but still not great. And we're paying him a lot of money. So I think he could be on his way out, and Tevin Jenkins will be the replacement.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the latter is probably more likely. Like you were saying, I think Teller is probably on his way out. So I think we probably ship him to a place, maybe a place like a San Fran or something like that. Hell, maybe he's part of the, if we end up trading for Ayuk, maybe he's part of that deal. Who knows? But I think that is the more likely option. And coming off of how bad of a year we had this year after just making the playoffs the year before, I really think they're going to put that guy at right guard, like you said. I don't think, hopefully we're not going to see as much crazy experimentation like throwing a Batonio at left tackle. Like, I think you play the guys at the positions you know they're good at, especially with Batonio aging a bit. Teller, like you said, has been on the downswing. So I think you play the guys where they're good at, and hopefully to shore up that line, because that was one of the many reasons why we sucked last year, was our offensive line was pretty atrocious.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, pretty small free agent class so far. Obviously, we laid out our hopes.
And didn't we brought Jerome Baker back, didn't we, too?
Oh yes, I almost forgot about him. Yes, we signed Jerome Baker, another linebacker who's a super speedy guy from Ohio State. He's a local guy. He's been in the league a while, mostly known for like he being a very athletic, speedy coverage linebacker out there. I think he'll pair well with Devin Bush, and hopefully JOK is healthy and can come back and do his thing. And if that's the case, then that's a really nice linebacker trio. Because if I remember correctly, I think we still have Jordan Hicks on the roster too.
Yeah, we do. So I think, like you said, hopefully this is a good piece that we can put in the rotation when needed, and let's just hope the JOK is healthy, because we haven't really heard anything since he had that pretty bad injury. So let's hope he can make it back to the field.
Yeah, so still pretty unknown on that one. Hopefully he's back, and this linebacker room actually looks really, really good if he is back. If he can't make it back, and it's going to be something where he's not going to play for a long time, and we roll out there with like Hicks, Bush, and Baker as our top three linebackers, I think that's still a solid enough room, but you're really going to miss JOK there. So hopefully we get him back. But the last big thing outside of a potential signing at quarterback, the draft. The draft is coming up here in a month. Obviously, as everyone knows, we have the second pick, and I've went all over the place.
Kyle
on how
Hamilton just would have caught that damn interception, buddy.
God, yeah, the number one pick.
Yep.
But this is going to be a really interesting draft, because this is the big question: who are we going to take it to? It looks like it's down to Shedeur, Abdul Carter, or Travis Hunter. It doesn't look like a trade back's going to happen. So it looks like we're going to stay put and take one of those three guys. I've always been the Abdul Carter guy. I think that's the clear choice. I think he's the best player in the draft. Him or Travis. I think he reminds me a lot of Von Miller. I'm not saying he's going to be Von Miller, but I think he can be 80% of Von Miller, which is a damn good edge rusher to go along with Myles Garrett. Because Myles, we've tried, like we've talked about before on the show many times. We've tried plenty of times to bring in a veteran guy who's proven to be that number two with Myles, and it always seems to disappoint for whatever reason, whether it was Jadeveon Clowney, Olivier Vernon, and most recently Zadarius Smith, who was probably the best of the bunch, and he still ended up getting shipped off anyway. So I think this is the time you get a bona fide, a guy who clearly is a number one edge rusher in the league, who will be a number one edge rusher in the league, but you can bring him in, be your number two, and that'll really help Myles Garrett. And I think shoring up the trenches is the goal, in my opinion. Shore up that defensive line. And I think that starts with taking Abdul Carter. I wouldn't hate Travis Hunter. I think he would be really fun. You'd sell a lot of tickets with him. And as I'm sure you guys can tell by how I'm saying, I don't think you take a quarterback at 2. Unless you're just rolling with Kenny Pickett, then fucking take any of the quarterbacks at 2. But
that's the one problem. It's like we don't know what we're going to get,
Yeah, so that's the big question mark. But
yeah, I would love Abdul Carter, like you said. I think he's going to be very good. I do think there's a lot of good pass rushers in this class as well outside of him.
It is
but I'm
deep.
like, he's clearly the best of the bunch. And if you have such a high pick, if you're in the top 3, I'm usually with you. Take the best available player. So I would love to take him. And that could be a guy that, as Myles is going to be 29 next year and getting older, he's going to have another, I think for the rest of this new contract, he'll be very good still and an all-pro player. But this is a guy that can really mentor this guy. And this could be the next Myles Garrett for us for the next decade. So that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like you said, outside of that, it almost has to be one of the Colorado boys in Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter. I don't think they go with like a Mason Graham or anything, just because we did sign Collins and we have Mike Hall, who we just literally drafted a year before, who could be very good. But I don't mind Hunter either, to be honest with you, especially with Denzel Ward's injury history and us. It pretty much coming out that we have been talking with the 49ers, and we're kind of hung up on the pick trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk. They want a 3rd from what I've read. We're willing to give up a 4th and Greg Newsome. So it seems like we're shipping out So would I. We're shipping out a cornerback who that's probably our deepest position by far on defense. We have a lot of pretty good cornerbacks. So if you get rid of Newsome, who hasn't been as good lately, I'm fine with that. And you get a guy like Ayuk that's a proven playmaker and still very young. But I don't mind Hunter either, to be honest, but just for that reason. Like, if we do end up trading Newsome and if Ward has another concussion or two, you might have to call it quits and he might be done. So, like, that could be your number one corner. But I think just having, even if it is only for however many years Ward stays healthy, I think having a guy under him to learn from him would be awesome.
Yeah, Hunter.
But number one would be Abdul. Two, I would take Hunter. And then I'm with you. I don't really want to take a quarterback, one or two, but we need to make a move here, man. I mean, the quarterback position is so important in our division, especially with, like we said, Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and then possibly Aaron fucking Rodgers. Granted, he's 41 years old. It's still Aaron Rodgers. Like, he's not the same guy, obviously, but you can't roll into the season with Kenny Pickett. You might damn well go 0-6 in the division if you roll out there with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, that's like you said, that's the main issue, because from what I've heard about Kirk Cousins is it's going to be a thing where no one's going to know what happens with him until after the draft, because which is going to be interesting. I think best case scenario is to take, Abdul at 2 and at that, and, fill out other positions in the draft. I would still take a QB somewhere just to get a young guy in there. And then I think the hope is that you can reach a deal with Atlanta where, they do something that teams have done a billion times in the past, where they pay a majority of that money they owe him. We give up a late pick. He comes here and is the vet guy here for a year or two or whatever while we figure out quarterback. I think like the ultimate best case scenario is we take Carter or Hunter at 2. And from what I've been seeing, now obviously this is a draft where no one's going to really know, but it seems very possible that if the Giants don't then take Shedeur at 3, he could drop like all the way into the mid-late first round, which to me, if you get past like Pittsburgh's pick, I would fucking call up, like, I don't know, I think like Seattle has like 18 or something like that. I'd call them and be like, hey, we'll give you our second round pick and a fourth round pick. You give us your mid-late first round pick and then go take Shedeur. If you get one of those top 2 guys at 2, and then you get Shedeur later in the first round, to me that's an A+ draft right there, at least first round.
Yeah, that would be, as I pretty much thought, like back when we first were talking about taking Shedeur. I think that is best case scenario. If you can get Carter and Shedeur, that would be nuts. I'd be happy. But I think he would really. Oh, I'd be very happy too. But like you said, if he doesn't go to the Giants right after us, he's going to fall to at least 7, because the Patriots aren't taking a quarterback and Jacksonville is not going to replace Trevor Lawrence. So, he's dropping at least a few spots. I don't think he falls all the way to like 16 or 17. But even then, like, how much it takes to move up even 1 or 2 spots. So, like, you can get a haul from a team, move back to even still in the back half of the top 10. If you move to like a 7 or 8, they're still going to have to give you their first plus either a pick or like other players to move up to get that pick. So we could still do that and maybe get a guy like that if we wanted to, but I would still like to take Carter at number 2 if we can.
Yeah.
Do you think Cam Ward is the census number 1?
It looks like it's going to be that way, and I kind of hope he is, because I think he would fit worse in Cleveland than Shedeur would if we did take a quarterback at 2. But it's looking that way. I'd be devastated if they ended up taking Abdul Carter or something. That
would suck.
Early on, I thought they were going to take Travis Hunter, but it looks like it's very likely they're going to take Cam. But apparently they are listening to offers for that number 1 pick, so you never know what could end up happening. It's hard to tell.
Maybe the Giants really like Cam Ward. You don't know.
It's possible. But I think
I don't think they're going to have to trade up to take Shedeur unless we're hell-bent on taking Shedeur Sanders at 2.
Yeah. But for me, I think the more realistic approach to the draft is at 2 you take Abdul Carter or Hunter. I prefer Abdul, so let's assume we take him just for my thesis, what I'm going to say here. At that first pick of the second round, my ultimate hope is that like Josh Connerly, the tackle out of Oregon, is there, or Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina. He's the second best back in this draft behind Genty, in my opinion. I think he's an absolute beast. I think he's a first-round pick in every other draft in the last like decade, aside from like 2 because of specific guys. And then the third round and that early fourth round pick is going to be really interesting because I think it's important to get, offensive line help. I think we take 2 running backs. If we don't get a running back with that 33rd pick, dude, you got Travion Henderson, Quinshaw Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatterbo, Dylan Sampson.
Where do you think those guys will go? Do you think those guys will be like late first round, all of them?
I think, I feel like
I think the Ohio State boys will be both probably late first rounders.
I think they're going to slip into the second, personally.
You think?
And then I think like Caleb Johnson will be third. I think. I feel like Quinshaw might drop to the third, who I actually like a little better than Travion. But it's hard to tell with running backs, man. Running backs are such a weird commodity in the draft, so I guess we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But I think
didn't we get Chubb in the third round?
Second.
Second.
But pop quiz: who'd we take with our first second round pick in that draft?
Which year was that? 2018.
Yeah.
Oh God, 2018. Was he defense or offense?
Offense. You get 10 seconds. Throw a name out
I
there.
have no idea.
Austin Corbett, offensive guard, and then 2 picks later we pick Nick Chubb. But anyway,
God, yeah, I don't even know.
Doesn't matter. But I think in terms of running back, I think you get a starting level guy as far down as like the 5th round in this draft in terms of running back. So I would take 2 of them. Fuck it. I would just take 2 of them. I think
especially like you said, we added so much in the offseason to our defense through free agency where you don't have many holes. So it's like you should draft 90% offense in this draft.
Yeah, in terms of defense, I mean, I would like to get an interior D lineman later on. I would like to get a corner or maybe a safety if you don't fully trust Ronnie Hickman to step into that role. But outside of that, obviously quarterback is up in the air. Who fucking knows?
That's what you need to figure out, because if you can land somebody, even if it is like a Kirk or something, like you need to have a plan and you need to be like 99.9% damn sure that you're either going to get a Kirk Cousins or bring somebody in, because the fans are not going to be happy. I mean, Kenny Pickett's the guy we saw for years in Pittsburgh being in our division, so that we know what he's capable of, and it ain't much. And this isn't like a guy who wasn't in our division, like a Justin Fields or somebody that, like, who knows, the book's kind of still out on. Like, I'm not sold on Fields, but he'd still be more exciting than fucking Kenny Pickett.
Right.
So this isn't being an OSU boy and everything. Like, it's just, you can't have Kenny Pickett as your starting quarterback. I mean, so many fans are already kind of out on what we're doing just with our ownership and the way we've handled things. The whole Myles Garrett thing was a disaster for how long it was. Thankfully, they re-signed him. But fucking all the shit going on with the stadium and everything, the mayor of Cleveland's losing his mind on the Haslams. They don't want to fucking let them take the stadium to Brook Park, and just the whole circus show that is the Cleveland Browns. You need to have somebody. I mean, in the position Andrew Berry's in now, too, like, I don't think it would take too much outside. I mean, you could obviously, like I said, draft one of those 2 guys, but fans would be happy if we had fucking anybody, the Brissett or a Flacco over fucking Kenny Pickett at this point. Like, just anybody new that's not Kenny Pickett, we need to have as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, the quarterback's a big question. That's why I have a hard time with this. Last position I'll touch on before what I want to be my closing statement from us. I do think taking a receiver is also important here. I'm a really big fan of the Stanford kid, Elick Ayumanor, I think is how you say his name. Reminds me a lot of like kind of what Amari Cooper does. I think it's important to take a receiver that's one of 2 types. I think you either need to take a guy who does similar things to like what Amari Cooper does, just like a bigger guy who can run routes and get open in that middle of the field, can take some deep shots, or you take just a speedy fucker. Like a smaller, speedy guy.
Like an Isaiah Bond in like the 4th or something.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd be there in the 4th, but
3rd maybe.
Something like that. Or Tez Johnson. I like Tez Johnson too, out of Oregon. But anyway, this draft's going to be really interesting. I think we pretty much touched on everything.
We finally have picks again, buddy.
Yeah, we finally have picks. I'm finally excited to watch a damn draft where we have picks, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. But I did want to end on this because I thought it would be fun. I think we should do this a few times before we get into, like, the draft is over. But we'll call this the first version of this. Me and you, let's end on this. Let's give our prediction for who we think the quarterback room will be week 1 next year. We'll call it 3 quarterbacks. What are the 3 quarterbacks on the roster going to be come week 1? Let's hear it, and I'll finish it off. What do you think?
God. So we know one of them is going to be Pickett, obviously. The other 2, really, I think the 3rd quarterback's harder to fucking pick than the first. I think our quarterback 1 is either going to be Kirk Cousins or Shador Sanders, probably. And rounding out the quarterback room, that's a good question. Somebody random. Who's a fucking backup quarterback right now? Like, is Trubisky a free agent?
I don't fucking know. Fuck him.
And Mitch Trubisky will be our third quarterback.
I can tell you put a lot of thought into that. But
Yeah. It ain't gonna, it has to be one of those two. Like, we already heard that the Dak Prescott thing got shut down, so that's not happening.
Yeah.
But it's going to be either Shador or it's going to be Kirk. Outside shot is Joe Flacco, just because the fans liked him. And that could be a guy that he pays little to no money to, and he's like, okay, cool, well, I'll appease the fans by having Flacco here for 2 months until his body falls apart.
Yeah, that's facts. Well, I like your thoughts there. But my prediction for the quarterback room as of March 26, 2025, I think Kirk Cousins will be your starter. I think he'll find his way here. I hope so. I'm gonna predict this assuming we don't get Shador Sanders, just because I don't know how much I trust him falling in the draft, and I'm playing this as if we pick Carter. So I'm gonna say Kirk Cousins, Kenny Pickett, and I know you're not gonna like this, but Kyle McCord, I think will be the third quarterback on the roster.
Okay.
I think we
could see that.
I think we pick him at either that 94th pick or 104th pick in the draft, and I would be a fan. I think I prefer Jalen Milroe a little more in that spot, but I feel like
I'd take Howard over fucking McCord.
I disagree. I like his upside more, bigger arm. But I mean, I think me and you both like Milroe a lot.
Yeah, he's probably going to go in.
I could
think
see
the
someone.
highest he goes is like late second round, but I think he'll be a third round quarterback.
That's what I'm thinking. I could see some team reaching in the late second, really early third, like before most teams are comfortable taking him, and they'll be like, oh well, we lost him. I think he'd be interesting, but I do want to make
second round pick's got to be, like you said, it's got to be a running back or like some kind
running
of
back
offensive
or
skill
offensive
position.
line or receiver. To me, is clearly,
Yeah.
or an edge rusher if you end up taking like Travis Hunter at 2 or something.
Yeah, if you could get the second or third best or whatever, like a top 5 edge rusher in the second round, I would do that too.
Yeah, it's a deep class. I do want to make a video. I know you're not super tuned in on the college football as well in terms of prospects, but I do want to make a video detailing the quarterbacks in this class. Maybe I'll rank like my top 10 and have you just listen to me and tell me if you think I'm stupid or smart. But maybe we'll do that. Maybe that'll be like the next Browns team videos. We'll talk about the quarterbacks. I don't know. We'll do something.
We're going to have to get a schedule together here too. What are we going to do for Guardians? Are we going to do once a week? Update on the Guardians, or what do you want to do with that?
Probably
we're
once
kicking
a
off
week.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Tomorrow's opening day, so once a week. Once a week, I think is fair, because we'll play like every week 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, usually around 5, I think.
Yeah, so
or actually 5 or 6 probably.
Oh yeah, because you play like 3-4 days in a row sometimes. So yeah. We'll figure it out as we go. But guys, we are back finally. We are on a better work schedule, so we can do this shit together again. We miss doing this. We miss talking to you guys. Some of you guys in the comments. But we're coming back at a good time. The Cavs are going to be real good. The Guardians, we're hopeful that they're going to be good. Draft season's coming up for the Browns, which is the most exciting when you're a bad team. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah,
I still haven't forgot about these bitch-ass Bronco fans either. Don't think they're off the hook.
It's going to be a running theme for the next decade, is how much we hate Broncos
Yeah,
fans.
literally.
But all right, but I'm going to get us on out of here. We appreciate you guys for listening again. We will be back uploading videos again, talking about our Browns, Cavs, and Guardians, and whatever else. But yeah, thank you for tuning in for the return episode of Cold Takes from the Land, and we will see you in the next one.
Cold Takes from the Land.